ever felt like you were at the bottom of a pit where there was no way out and there's nothing ahead of you except for a long, dark night? I have, and let me tell you my story. I come from the Philippines, where Ferdinand Marcos ruled as a dictator. He declared martial law so he can keep all the power to himself and keep himself in power. He destroyed the democratic institutions in the country. He destroyed the rule of law. There was much corruption in government, and anyone who dared to protest could be severely punished. During the dictatorship, I was a political activist and a member of the underground Communist Party of the Philippines. Together with my comrades, we would politically educate people, raise their consciousness, organize them, and mobilize them. We ran massive demonstrations and long marches to bring down the dictatorship. It was an extraordinary time, but it was also a very dangerous time. So we had to trust and rely on each other to feel safe and be secure. By 1986, People Power had defeated Marcos, but the government that replaced him was still a government of the elite. So the work that we do turned to expanding whatever democratic space we had won to make sure that the government truly served the interests of the people. I headed the Public Information Department of the largest political alliance at that time. But in 1988, I was falsely accused by the Communist Party of being a spy. I was arrested at gunpoint, blindfolded, handcuffed, chained to a bed. For 5 long months, I was interrogated, physically and mentally tortured. I was threatened to be killed by people whom I knew and I thought I trusted. But I wasn't the only one. There were many others who were also being kept in camps and in safe houses. The Communist Party had been doing the purge for some time, and it's estimated that around 2,000 people were killed. I was one of those who made it out alive. After 5 long months of captivity and torture, I received a small note that essentially said, "Sorry, there was no real reason to suspect you." But I could not go home, not immediately, because while I was missing, my family, my friends who remained faithful to me despite the accusations against me, and the human rights community in the Philippines campaigned and pressured the government to find me and others who have gone missing. So the military was looking for me. And I knew they would come and get me the moment I came home. So after proving that I was not a spy, I did not want to fall into the hands of the enemy. Meanwhile, the Communist Party also wanted to keep everything a secret. It could not risk exposing what happened because it was afraid of the political consequences. So I made it out alive, but at the cost of my identity. I was forced to go into hiding. I could not use my name. I had fake IDs. I even tried to change the way I looked. When my husband, who was also a member of the underground movement and was desperately looking for me, first in military camps and prisons, then in hospitals, and finally in morgues, when he was told that I was alive, he refused to let me go into hiding alone. So with him, I drifted from house to house, and we had no jobs, so we had to rely on people's generosity for money. I could not go out with my friends, not in public and not that often, because it could put them and myself in danger. I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and was starting to go a little bit crazy. And I guess, expectedly, that took its toll on our marriage and it collapsed, only for me to find out that I was pregnant. So for a few years, until thankfully my husband and I reconciled, I was also a single mother. But the birth of my daughter forced me to pick up the pieces and rebuild my life. I connected with friends, but also with other torture survivors, and we started sharing stories, talk about our feelings, and made sense of what we had gone through. And within that circle, we found solidarity. We found support for each other. And we found the strength to finally speak up, break the silence, break the secrecy, because we felt that we, the living, needed to be testimonies for the 2,000 who are dead. So we formed the Peace Advocates for Truth, Healing, and Justice. It's a group of torture survivors, but also the families of those who did not survive, and friends who supported our cause. Our cause is not about casting individual blame or sowing hatred. What we want is to tell the truth about the dark period in the history of the Philippine left. What we want is to be known as torture survivors. We want our suffering acknowledged because acknowledgement is the beginning of justice. We want the Communist Party to reveal the names of those it had killed. We want them remembered. We want the past remembered so that it may never happen again. Personally, forgiving my torturers freed me from my past and allowed me to move forward. Collectively, speaking up enabled us to heal. Speaking our truth empowered us to be who we are. I learned to think and speak for myself. My experience of torture and betrayal obviously is a very personal one, but my work with social movements and with Oxfam have shown me that the lessons I learned are universal. Where human rights are being violated, where freedoms are suppressed, where people are being made to suffer the indignity and injustice of poverty and inequality, they are also deprived of their voice. Tyrants don't want to hear any story other than theirs. So speaking up is fighting back. And Rebecca Solnit probably said it best when she said, "To be rendered voiceless is to be dehumanized. And to suffer in silence is to suffer without recourse." I've seen it in many places and in many circumstances. Truth is the light that shines through the darkness, and solidarity is the force that pulls us through even the most desperate of times. I've seen it in the countries where Oxfam works, along with our partners, in Cambodia, where farmers are fighting land grabbing by big multinational corporations, In the Philippines, where coconut farmers marched thousands of kilometers to demand the return of money that was stolen from them by a rich and powerful few. In Honduras, where the leaders of indigenous peoples are being killed for opposing a dam project that would take away their ancestral lands and ancestral waters. In India, Indonesia, Pakistan, South Africa, where Oxfam is campaigning with other women's groups to say enough, violence against women and girls must stop. And whether it's food security or climate change or inequality, we're always trying to speak truth to power. Here in Spain, Oxfam Intermon is campaigning on behalf of migrants and women, two groups who are most vulnerable to discrimination and inequality. And they do this on top of the work that they do abroad to address poverty and to save lives where there is a disaster. I have been fortunate in my work with Oxfam to be able to support connections between people and organizations. And through these organizations, stories flow. And when stories flow, they get amplified. And when they get amplified, they renew the energies of people to keep fighting, even when the going gets tough, but most especially when the stakes are high. When people fight against injustice, there are no guarantees that they will win. None. But simply by speaking up, they have already broken free from intimidation and repression. Back in my own country, the Philippines, some people are finding it very hard to speak up. As you may know, the war against drugs in the Philippines has killed nearly 8,000 people and counting. Widows and orphans are finding it hard to speak their truth because they are afraid that when they speak up, they will be targeted and killed. So other individuals and other organizations have stood up and spoken for them. One of these groups is Baigani, a small organization made up of feminists to which I belong, and we stand in solidarity with the victims of the killings. Working with lawyers, the church, schools, and other women's groups, we're trying to create a safe space where the victims can speak their truth and feel safe. We're trying to address their livelihood and humanitarian needs, but most importantly, we are standing up and speaking out and convincing the public and the powers that be to stop the killings. And slowly, those who have felt powerless, those who have felt helpless, those who have felt trapped, are finding the strength, finding the courage to speak their truth despite their fears and the very real dangers that they face. Baigani is a very small organization. We have no money, no stature. But large movements started out small. Even Oxfam, considered to be one of the largest and most influential organizations globally, started with only 9 people. So what starts small grows big with the support of others. So I call on you. I call on you. Expand your awareness of what is going on around you. Connect with organizations that provide the platform for the powerless, the voiceless, the discriminated, the vulnerable. Hear their story. Listen to their truth. And I hope feel compelled to add your voice so that those who cannot speak may also be heard. I hope you will be moved enough to take action. Every little act builds hope. Every day we go out to meet the world and we try to make sense of what's happening through our interactions, our relationships, our observations. None of that happens in isolation. We are all part of humanity, and we can make a choice to stand in solidarity with others who are trying to create a more just, more humane, more gentle society. It won't be easy. It won't be easy. Many times it will feel like the bottom of that pit. Many times it will feel like a long, dark night. But when the sky is most dark, that's when we see even the faintest of stars. Truth is that star. Look for it.